I've always had this sort of theory. You know, I interview a lot of bodybuilders, but not as many powerlifters. I've always had this theory that a lot of us the bodybuilders begin bodybuilding when they're younger, often because there's some kind of insecurity. And bodybuilding can be like building an armor of muscle around your body. It gives you a kind of security. So I noticed that a lot with bodybuilders. In my case, I started powerlifting in high school for similar reasons. I wanted you to tell us how a football being kicked away from you got you into powerlifting.
Yeah, I would say that like, I didn't have a lot of like, insecurities necessarily that I could like identify even now, even looking back at it. Like I wasn't small. I was a huge kid. I was the same weight I am right now when I was like 16. So I've always been kind of a bigger person, even though I'm not necessarily huge in comparison to some of the top bodybuilders that you see. But yeah, I was messing around with my football, throwing it up in the air. My favorite football, my New York Jets football. And I don't know, probably like 11, I think, something like that. Chucking this football up in the air. And then one of my brother's friends who had a sick mullet at the time. I had a mullet as well because that's just what we did back then. Growing up in New York, listening to some heavy metal and some like Metallica and AC/DC mixed in with some NWA here and there. And anyway, this guy's like, "Hey, Bell, throw me the ball." And I knew better because this guy was a dick and he was like an older guy. And he just takes the ball and he turns around and he punts my football into the woods. And I just remember kind of feeling, hopeless and helpless at that moment because I was like, I don't want anyone to ever be able to do anything like that to me ever again. So I was like, I better start training this fat little body of mine. And you can cut to like a Rocky montage. And I started lifting in our basement, started messing around, doing some curls and a bunch of other stuff like that. And fortunately for me, my dad, I don't know how he knew what to buy or get, but he bought like a squat rack and bought Olympic plates and a barbell. And we had like a whole setup where we could squat, bench, and deadlift right out of the gate from the time I was 11, 12 years old.
So you were 11-year-old in your basement doing curls and stuff like that to try to get stronger to defend yourself. By the way, what was your dad's profession?
My dad did income taxes, real estate, but at that time he was working for IBM. IBM was their headquarters is in Poughkeepsie, New York, where I grew up. So that's what he was doing. But our basement was converted. It was kind of just a dungy, gross basement, and my dad converted it into being an income tax practice place, and then the other half of it was our gym. And so money and gymming went hand in hand. Since the time I was a kid, I saw the connection kind of between the two at a young age.
Well, that's a very interesting subject because that's one of the things we have to talk about. Just for the audience to realize, I think Mark, you could say, is at least one of the top two most industrious powerlifters ever in terms of all that you get done. I mean, I would only think maybe Dave Tate is very active as well. But so I'm going to get into that later. By the way, I have a story to tell you, Mark. A very similar thing happened to me at the exact same age. I was 11 years old. I was on a school trip to Thailand, and I was in a new school, and I didn't know many of the kids in the school. And I was
in Thailand. From where? From
Dubai. We were close. It was just, they do a yearly school trip. That was a cool school, but basically I was 1 year younger than everybody, and some of the American guys, obviously I'm half Arab, they were bigger than me physically. So one guy, and I never forget this, it's seared into my memory. I had some argument with one huge 6-foot guy. I was like 11, he's 6 foot, and in response to the argument, he grabbed me by my neck as an 11-year-old and lifted me up and put me on a wall. And all of the classmates were there and the girls were laughing. And it was once that happened, I did the same thing as you. I started doing curls in my house, getting like bricks, trying to hold bricks to make my hands stronger like his. That's actually how I got into grip sport. So it's funny how these small moments in early life can determine, how, especially fuel ambition toward weightlifting and things like that.